Not surprisingly, the Pittsburgh Steelers are in the news. Their GM, Kevin Colbert, had a press conference yesterday, obviously, to talk about Antonio Brown. And you really can't talk about Antonio Brown without talking about Ben Roethlisberger, the quarterback. Their relationship is one of the reasons that Antonio really wants out of Pittsburgh. And so Colbert addressed that as well. Here's one quote that really stuck out to me when he was talking about Ben Roethlisberger. This is from Kevin Colbert, their GM. He said, Ben is the unquestioned leader of this group. Like I said, he's the elder statesman and the Super Bowl winner. If our players were smart, they'd listen to him because he's been there. He's done it. He can tell them, no, guys, what you're doing is or is not good enough to do this. And I honestly believe that can be a burden on him more often than he may like to admit, because he has to. He's got 52 kids under him, quite honestly. I want them to step up and say, hey, Ben, what do I have to do? Can I do this better? What do we have to do to win a Super Bowl? I think that once you win it, you've got 53 guys who can say what it took. Right now, he's the only one, so I have no problem with him. Well, Rob, I have a problem with that statement. And let me say this. A lot of times, as an African-American here in America, and all the history of this country, the history of oppression, racial discrimination, so on and so forth, and still some of it going on today. There are a lot of things that are said that aren't said with racist intent. And the person saying it, typically a white person, may not mean have racist intent or be a racist. But they don't sit well with a lot of African Americans, again, because of the history of this country. And I don't know Kevin Colbert at all. I'm not going to accuse him of being a racist at all. I'm assuming he's not a racist. They got a black head coach. Obviously, he works with a lot of black players. I'm not accusing him of racism or being a racist at all. But when you say this, particularly, he's got 52 kids under him. And the majority of those quote-unquote kids are African-American men.
Grown men.
Yes, it doesn't sit well with me as a black man, because for the majority of this country's history, the majority of it, there has been a concerted effort to keep black men in a state of perpetual adolescence as boys. I mean, we were even called boys by young, you could be a grown man historically, and a little white boy could call you a boy. So this does not sit well with me. Again, I don't think Kevin Colbert had any racist intent whatsoever. But when he calls grown men, he called all men, the white players too. But I'm saying as a black man,
right?
It really rubs me the wrong way to say you got 52 kids, grown men who are kids, under this white leader who is not impeccable himself.
Who's had his own had his own lapses in judgment.
Major lapses, major issues, and you talking about him like he's some model citizen, and everybody
and
else,
he's done
including
everything
the white
right.
players,
Right.
Yeah, are a bunch of kids. So I just got to get that off my chest. Again, I'm not saying he's racist, but there's certain things that rub us as blacks the wrong way because of our experience in this country, and that's one of them.
No, I hear you. I didn't like the tone of it. I just didn't like the quotes, the way that it came out. Do you know what I mean? I'm with you.
Right.
And I just don't think that anybody, I don't care who it was, and I'm going to say this, Chris, and don't faint. I don't think Bill Belichick would have said that and said that all the players need to follow Tom Brady and be in that vein. And he would have even more to say, right? Because he's done more winning than Ben. But I don't believe
and
that
Brady's got a clean, his clean. I mean, obviously there was Deflategate and stuff like that.
But you know what I mean.
Personal life, yeah, he's.
But
clean.
I don't think that they would ever say. Do you know what I mean?
I agree with you.
I don't
totally agree.
So everybody who says I always rip the Patriots, I'm telling you, I don't believe. I would hear that. And I think
I think you're right.
And I just think that his point might have been that Ben is our leader until further notice. And if you wanted to go out and say that, he's the quarterback and all that. but I just think he took it too far. And you're right. We come with baggage whether people want to acknowledge it or not.
Right.
It's a tough existence. Seriously. It just is. So
yeah.
I could see where some players could listen to that and say, what? I'm a grown man. I got 3 kids and a wife.
Right, and you're calling me a kid.
Right. I can make decisions. I know right from wrong. I know how to go to work, roll up my sleeves, Chris, right? Get my lunch pail. I know how to do all that.
Yep. Well, I first of all, I commend you for bringing up Belichick and Brady because obviously you've been critical of them. But you're right. I would be shocked if they said anything like
that. Yeah.
Right. And as to your point, Brady would be, he's much more of a leader than Ben is. His record is clean off the field. And
right.
He's won more and the whole 9 yards. He's more mature, all of that. Players, you don't hear them criticizing him and about how he criticizes them. And I think Colbert did. I have no problem with him coming out and saying Ben is our leader. Ben is our quarterback. Ben has won 2 Super Bowls. I'm fine with that. But like you said, he went way too far.
I think he went too far.
And this he basically said they can't question Ben.
Right, that Ben is unquestionable and just do what he says and listen and take his wrath whenever he wants to come down on you. That's really what he said. As if you're fourth graders and he's the teacher.
Yep.
Right? A fourth grader, they don't talk back, right? They haven't earned that.
Right.
You're asking grown men to just accept if Ben wants to criticize them. And remember this. It's not just Ben criticizing them to their face. He does it on his radio show.
Yep.
It's not just a private conversation where somebody could say, dude, I need you to do better. I'm sorry.
Well, and this supports what Antonio Brown said about him when he tweeted that Ben has an owner mentality. And you can see why he has it. Because, I'm sure Ben knows that Colbert feels this way about him.
Yep.
He's probably showed him that. And you can say this about a coach. But and honestly, Rob, even if you said this about a head coach, some players would have a little issue with it, right?
Yep.
And they should have an issue when you say you got 52 kids. Any grown man should have an issue with you calling him a kid or a boy. Okay, that's what he did. But even if you say this is the type of terminology you use for a coach, he's the boss, they should do what he says. And then some players are still, and somewhat rightly so, because they're grown men, say, look, if I have a question about something we're doing, I'm going to speak my mind about it. Now, I'll submit to the coach ultimately, but I feel like I can also have a say. You know what I mean?
At any job, right, Chris? Even where we work, if there's something that's going on, we can have a conversation with our bosses here at Fox Sports Radio or over at FS1 and say we don't like that. It doesn't mean we're being disrespectful or we can't take authority, but there's certain limits to where, as a man, you stand up and say, "No, I'm not doing that," or "I don't agree with that," and you'd have to explain it a little bit to me for me to have to justify it.
Yeah, he went way too far. I'm sorry, Ben. Again, anybody you said this about would be going too far, but especially Ben. And that's why, remember I've talked about Ben needs to reach out to AB. They need to sit down man to man. I'm not putting it all on Ben. I think AB, if he has issues with Roethlisberger and the way he feels like he's using
they should have a conversation.
Yeah, he should be man enough to be like, look, man, let's sit down face to face and talk it out. Doesn't mean we're going to fight. We're just going to have a conversation.